Welcome to Black and Blue, the podcast that's just for you. We bring solutions to everyday problems. We are here to humanize the badge. By interviewing first responders and discussing their trainings, experiences, and publications. Black and Blue airs weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in.
You know, this has been tried, but it worked on, like George Washington used this, Thomas Jefferson uses, Martin Luther King Jr. Would give stoic advice to his followers during the civil rights movements. Like every time you see adversity or hardship or somebody fighting the good fight against long odds, stoicism just kind of pops up like, oh, here I am. You know, like it's crazy. General James Mathis, the former Marine Corps commandant, when he would go into Iraq, he had a copy of Marcus Aurelius' Meditations right there. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Teddy Roosevelt, Nick Saban, Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, and then like people you wouldn't expect, like T-Pain, all practicing Stoics. They've all found something in it that helps them out. And, it's really crazy. Like when you look into it and you see that like Mark Cuban and Jeff Bezos, they also practice those. Like some of the richest people you've ever heard of, they're using this. And so you gotta say like, okay, how come they're taking this 2,300-year-old thing that I've never heard of, and they're putting it to work? How come nobody's teaching us about it? How come nobody's telling the cops? So, and it used to be when I was a real cop and out on the street answering calls, I would use this stuff to stay calm in the moment, when I'm toe to toe with somebody. Now I honestly use it inside the walls of the police station a lot more often than I use it outside the walls of the police station. So it's really good for that too. Just dealing with those internal politics and that. That stuff that goes on.
Special guest Sergeant Steve Sweeting in his book Street Stoic, The Ancient Philosophy of Modern Policing. Make sure you guys go get your copy. Gonna ask a couple more questions here about the book and situations and how this philosophy can apply to, let's say, this is a high stress job, and we mentally, physically, and emotionally. And it takes a toll on us as first responders and law enforcement, and therefore collateral damage. It takes a toll on our families and friends as well. How can you suggest or give tips that are in the book on how we can at least alleviate some of the stress in our lives so we can still maintain the proper relationships with those who are affected by us and the job?
Yeah, I would say after I started practicing Stoicism, I became a much better husband, a much better son and brother and friend. And it's probably because a lot of what Stoicism teaches or has to talk about is controlling your own ego, controlling your own anger. And it very much against anger and hostility. And it teaches that you're only hurting yourself by allowing yourself to be angry about these things, and understanding that, and this is going to get a little deep into Stoicism. I don't know if we'll have a lot of time to talk about it, but the idea is the opinion you take of something or your judgment about a situation or a person or an event, whatever your opinion about it is, your emotions will follow that. So in that way, if you take the right opinions, you can have better emotions. If you're basically happier, lighter, feeling better about things, less angry, then of course you're going to be better to be around in general. One Stoic quote is every interaction with a person is an opportunity for kindness. And I think that's something we all need to remember, is that no matter what happens, if somebody says something nasty to you or unthoughtful or just a little bit rude or whatever, like, you don't have to come back with that same energy.
Right.
You can just decide ahead of time, no matter what they do or say, I'm just going to be kind. And that doesn't mean being a punching bag or just taking a bunch of crap for no reason. Like, you don't have to put up with abuse, but people have a bad day, and you're not the most important thing in everybody's life all the time. So, understanding, like, hey, get your ego in check, get your anger in check, and then try to respond with a little bit of kindness. And what I found is when somebody comes at me nasty and I just go, hey, I'm sorry to hear you feel that way or whatever. And I come back with, like, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to get it off your chest? That's fine. I won't be offended. All of a sudden it de-escalates the situation. And that's one thing I tell a lot of cops is, like, de-escalate yourself first. Make sure you're not bringing negative energy into a bad situation. And absolutely. It helps quite a bit in the home life, and just understanding that your anger doesn't get you anything, and understanding how you can, I just wrote an article about, let's say the teenage prom queen, it's the night before the big dance. And she trips and falls and knocks out her front tooth.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's the worst thing that's ever happened. The pictures, her date isn't going to want to go with her. The pictures, she's not going to get the crown or whatever it is. Very same tooth, very same situation happens to a 6-year-old child running along. Boom, they knock out that front tooth. It's a rite of passage. They're excited. They're happy. They can't wait to show you that tooth. The tooth fairy's going to come and give them a present. Very same tooth. You got a hockey player. They're out there playing hockey, doing what they love. Boom, tooth gets knocked out, and they don't even react. They just keep on playing, because that's what happens when you play hockey. That's what happens when you live life, right? Things happen. You can choose to look at it like the prom queen. You can choose to look at it like the kid, or you can just be like the hockey player and say things happen in life. And pretty much every situation there, other than like the death of a loved one, granted, like some things, there's not a bright side to everything, but most everything else, you can choose to look at it like the prom queen. You can choose to look at it like the little kid that's going to get the tooth fairy. And your attitude and your emotions will follow whatever choice you make. So the practice of stoicism in a lot of ways is about practicing, okay, how do I look at this in the good light? How do I look at this as a positive? So, that is, I have this tattooed on my arm. I don't know if you guys can see it.
I read it throughout the book.
It's amor fati, and it looked like, the song "That's Amore." Amore, it means love, and fate is fate, and it is the love of your fate. It is, and it's seeing everything that happens to you as it's going to be beneficial, or it's going to be useful, or this thing needed to happen so that I could become the person that I need to be.
Right.
And you don't become the person you need to be, through like rainbows and sunshine and puppies and happy days, right? Like, I didn't become a strong guy or somebody who's resilient because everything went great. Some bad things had to go into the mix for me to develop into the person who can handle life situations and be the person that can go out there and save lives and teach other people how to help and serve their communities. So a lot of negative things are necessary if you look at it in those terms. And that's how you can be truly resilient. That's how, if you can look at things as, all right, how does this help me? How does this benefit the world? How does this benefit Steve or Clee? Then all of a sudden, there's nothing bad. And that's pretty powerful.